Welcome to the Baru Podcast, a modern lifestyle podcast for dogs and their people. I'm your host, Charlotte Bain. Well, we are right in the middle of allergy season, you guys. And in today's episode, I chat about how we can combat yeast and allergies in our dogs with canine nutritionist Hannah Zulueta. If you have a dog that struggles with allergies like I do, you know how challenging and frustrating it can be. We chat about how we can address allergies in our pups through food nutrition and why feeding our dog a variety of different foods is so important for their gut health and in turn can help their allergies. There's even an appearance by her new ridiculously cute puppy, Mr. Higgins. So let's get to the chat. So today, thanks again for jumping back in with me. It's nice to see you again. I thought we could really just delve into yeast and allergies, especially because I think that's A, one of your specialties, and B, the spring and summer months are always just really tough for our dogs. I know that from experience with my own guy. Yeah. But how we can combat yeast and allergies, using food nutrition and supplements and seeing how, if we can avoid, obviously there's a time and place for antihistamines and other medications, but if we can try to get on top of them without using things that might have potential side effects, that's always a really good idea, right? So do you want to jump in?
Yeah.
I would love for you to just kind of talk a little bit about your background, because I know you kind of were in the beginning, like something deep in your core guided you to doing nutrition and alternative ways of healing dogs through nutrition and supplements. And before you even did any formal training, you were doing this. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
So I'd always been interested in. Thank you for having me back.
Thank you for joining me. It's so exciting.
So I'd always been interested in dogs and dog food, and I actually grew up feeding them raw. And it wasn't any sort of academic way that we were feeding them. We grew up in Papua New Guinea, and we didn't have kibble, so I didn't actually see kibble until I came to the United States and I was in high school. And I remember my dad dropped me off at the kibble line at Walmart, and it was 2 rows on either side of me of kibble, and I chose Kibbles and Bits because it was a big blue bag and I really liked the dog, and I was fascinated with the different colored kibble, and I thought, this is how the Americans do it, so this is how we have to do it. Fast forward to having dogs that never had issues, always fed them kibble, and then I got Maggie, and that was 7 years ago. And she had allergies at 8 months. And I remember going to the vet, and they gave me Apoquel for her itching. Mm-hmm. I got home and I went on Dr. Google. I looked it up and I said, wow, this has more risks than I like. And I've always been more of a natural person myself. And I think that came about, again, growing up in Papua New Guinea. We didn't go to the doctor. We learned how to fix ourselves through food or ointments. I joke. I don't know if you remember that movie, My Greek Wedding, my big
fat Greek wedding.
My big fat Greek wedding, where the father had what is it? The wind cleaner, Windex for everything.
Yes. Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
And so the Filipinos my dad had this ointment. Every time the kids had any sort of problem, he's like, come here, let's put this ointment on you. And
do you remember what the ointment was?
Liberal. So it was Liberal, and it was out of Switzerland, but it was kind of like the version of Tiger Balm, because Tiger Balm was banned at some point.
Oh, interesting.
So if we had Tiger Balm, it would have been Tiger Balm, but it was something that smelled like that. And I remember being a child running away from him, like, I don't want that stinky stuff on me. But anyway, I remember going through, giving Maggie the Apoquel, and said, well, my vet said to do this. I trust my vet. But then what happened was she still had allergies. And so I realized something else is going on. Let me see what I can do to help her. And I just did my own research. And at that time, I was feeding Taste of the Wild. And I switched to home cooking. And prior to her, I had another dog that I was feeding commercial raw. And it was just the thaw and serve.
Right.
I didn't know how to do it. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to buy the food. And so with Maggie, I was cooking the food, finding recipes online on Pinterest of all places. We didn't have the social media personalities, nutritionists, vets talking about dog food 7 years ago. That
Right.
became more popular, I would say, the last 2 years. And so I started to do it, bought books. I even would give my books to all my friends and I would say, here, you got to learn how to cook for your dog. And, my books would be all everywhere with all my.
Yeah.
And I mean, even though we had the internet, you still bought books.
Yeah.
And I remember Orbit came along and her breeder weaned her onto raw. And so Orbit's breeder taught me how to feed raw. But a year and a half later, Orbit had yeast. So I had one dog that had environmental allergies, and on the other hand, another dog that had yeast. Mm-hmm. And I remember looking at them both and sitting in the office saying to myself, I need to learn how to do this properly because clearly something is not right.
Right.
And so my boyfriend, bless his soul, he's always my voice of reason, doesn't know anything about food, and even told me, if something ever happened to you, I don't know what I would do. I would know how to feed the girls. And so he said to me, he's like, are you done experimenting now, and are you ready to go see a professional? Mm-hmm. And that was one of those core moments where I looked at him and I was like, I've got that spirit if I want to figure everything out for myself. I'm like, yep, I need professional help. So I looked in the local directory, found Dr. Katie Kangas. She's a very good vet here locally, integrative health. And so I went off to see her. She put the girls on a detox, and it was... My countertop had, 8 little bottles, and it was a drop of this. You know how it goes. A drop of this, a drop of that. And each dog was slightly different. So one was getting, one pill. The other one was getting a half a pill, different times. And did the detox, and she gave me recipes on how to cook. Get off raw, go uncooked. So I got uncooked and really self-taught. Up until last year, I realized, looking around the dog community, that there were raw feeders and fresh feeders, and we'd all been doing this now 6-7 years, and their dogs were getting tested, but they would have deficiencies of something or the other. And I said, clearly, we're missing something. I don't know what it is that we're missing, but we're all very smart people, and our dogs are now coming up vitamin D deficient, calcium deficient, whatever it might be. It was several friends. So I thought, okay, I need to enroll. And ended up getting enrolled. The owner of the company that I was working for at the time said, I'll pay for your course. And I said, okay, cool. So then a few of us got enrolled, took the course. And what that did was it filled in the gaps, and I'm sure you've been around food, this concept of complete and balance, and raw feeders and home feeders or cooked feeders, saying we don't need to do complete and balance, we balance over time. But there is a reason why we need to know the zinc levels and the manganese levels and how much vitamin D your dog has to eat through food and how much vitamin E your dog has to eat through food. And if you're not meeting any of those, how to safely and properly supplement. I've got a puppy right now, and I refreshed on the correct calcium to phosphorus ratio and amounts and all of that. There's a reason those exist. And where it's kind of like giving away my age, being middle-aged, we all think
we're not middle-aged. Our parents are middle-aged. We're not middle-aged.
But I talked to my brothers, my older brothers, and 3 of them have had, well, I have 3, and all 3 of them have had a bypass, and they talk about their sugar levels. And so when we're young and we're strong and we're vibrant, we don't think about these health issues until the health issues start knocking on the door.
Right.
And so I wanted to avoid that because I'm deathly afraid of going to the doctor.
Yeah.
So I've got a little fear motivation there. I'm like, I just want to stay healthy. I don't want to see the doctor. So I'm motivated to feed myself properly, having been endurance, if you will, like marathon, half marathon runner.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
Yeah, and so I learned how to fuel myself properly, and I know that there's courses out there. So I became certified last year spring. So I haven't been certified that long, but all it did really was I tested out all my recipes that I was putting into Excel spreadsheets, and I put it into the software I have now. I'm like, oh, I wasn't far off at all. It was just these little things, and so yeah, so that's my background, and I want to help other dog owners learn how to do
Right.
this. I don't want to be the witch doctor where back in the ancient days there was only one person that held all the knowledge and they held all the power. And if you wanted to
Right.
talk about health, you had to go see the witch doctor, and that was how they held power. No, I want to empower someone and pass the information on, because the questions are going to come at 6:30 at night when they're putting food in the bowl, or at 11:30 at night when their dog threw up and they're trying to figure out why.
Right.
And so my goal is not to just consult and help people feed their dogs. I want to teach them how to feed their dogs,
Right.
and do that one-on-one. So right now it's allergy season.
Yeah. It's bad right now.
And yeah, it started off with my clients in Vegas.
Okay.
So they get the summer much earlier, and they get the wind, and it's 100 degrees, and
Ugh.
it's just super. I mean, how hot is it in LA right now?
I mean, it's not actually too bad right now. I think it's mid 80s, but we've definitely had our fair share of wind recently and all sorts of weird stuff. And just, the dust kicks up. We haven't had rain in so long. And so it's just everybody's super itchy.
Yeah. And, we're talking about the 80s, but you've got parts of the countries that are in the hundreds
I
and
know.
layer in humidity. So I know that yesterday I kept opening the fridge and eating like a piece of watermelon.
Yeah.
And the other thing is rambutan, which is this fruit that's like a lychee, and it's so refreshing. And even we change how we eat because it's so hot. And if you think about our dogs,
Right.
regardless of the diet that they're fed, it's kibble, the same kibble. And even if they're eating a cooked diet or a raw diet, it's the same
Right.
recipe essentially. Because if you're buying it commercially, you've got 5 different protein choices. So how do you change the things that your dogs, or I call it a dietary tilt. So they've got their core diet, which is the meat, the organs, the calcium, the omegas, and then the vegetables is where you can tilt the diet left or right, depending on what's going on. So I know you see a lot of dogs. What are you hearing from your community?
As far as the allergies, as far as what's going on, all my dogs are itchy right now. A few of them are yeasty, but mostly it's just dry skin and itch.
Okay.
My clients, they feed a wide variety of different kinds of foods to their dogs. As far as meaning like some dogs are on kibble, some dogs are on like a cooked delivery, some dogs are on raw, some dogs are on like a freeze dried. None of my clients cook for their dog.
Sure.
But I encourage, and a simple solution for a lot of them is to go to the vet and get, just like a shot. And I understand because it's a quick relief. But I just feel like there are, especially when you have a dog that's constantly, I have a few dogs that are constantly struggling with environmental allergies as well as we think food sensitivities and food allergies. So if we can get a handle on that by making some adjustments to their meal plan, and helping them with some supplements and kind of hold off on going to the big medications if possible. That's always, a good way to go. Ah, there he is.
I heard him getting into his litter box.
I heard him doing something over there.
I had to go check on the little guy. For those that can't see, I've got an 11-week naughty little puppy that's getting into.
He's really cute.
Very cute.
He's a Boston Terrier, right?
He's a Boston Terrier.
Yeah.
So
cute.
Underlying all of these itchy issues is a leaky gut. And So, concurrent to providing relief to the immediate allergy, we need to also concurrently address the leaky gut. And it's pretty simple, in my mind, it's pretty simple, which is what does the gut bacteria like to eat? Of all things, fiber. And so, kibble has fiber. All cooked and raw diets have fiber, but sometimes it's not enough. And what I find that this fiber likes to eat is either fermented vegetables, not all the time. You can't give a yeasty dog fermented vegetables. You can give an itchy, dry, hot dog fermented vegetables, but you can't give a yeasty dog
Why can't you give
vegetables.
a yeasty dog fermented vegetables?
So it's histamine content. So then, okay, little puppy, you are being very wiggly. So then we want to address the leaky gut. We want to give the stomach something to eat. That would be vegetables. So giving the bacteria food by adding toppers. So if anyone has not read the Forever Dog book, it's a great book to start to understand what toppers, vegetables to feed. Essentially, I go to whatever you feed yourself, share that with your dog in the right species appropriate portions. So dogs do not need a lot of vegetables. I'm talking teaspoons, tablespoons, or I call paw print sizes. So if you look at your dog's paw print, that is the appropriate amount of vegetables to start off with, and no more than 4 paw prints.
Oh, interesting. So, I did not know that.
I came up with that one day because I kept saying 5%. They're like, well, what does that look like? And then I looked down at my dogs and the amount I was putting on their bowls, and then I went, oh, it's their paw print. And it adjusts to whatever size dog. So you want to give your dogs vegetables, but you also want to address and heal the leaky gut. And I do that now with my clients through vegetable broth. You'll hear bone broth, but not all dogs do well on beef bone broth or apple cider vinegar. So just even giving your dogs a vegetable broth, and it's whatever vegetables you have in the fridge, stick it in the Instapot for 30 minutes. And the key thing at the end of it is add some L-glutamine capsule that you would take for yourself. Open it up, put it in that broth. Up to 3 capsules in an Instapot size, and feed that to your dog for 2-3 weeks, a tablespoon or 2, just adding that to their meals. Another supplement to give them would be colostrum.
And what does that do?
So that just helps to repair the gut lining as well. And so you want to, A, stop any food that's going to trigger any reactions, B, heal the gut, strengthen the gut, and C, give the bacteria food to eat. And it's not going to happen overnight.
Right.
It's going to take, I have clients where I give them a 4-week feeding plan, and I'll say, see me in 4 weeks, or, keep me posted. And however long it took the dog to get to that condition is how long it's going to take for complete healing. If not sooner, but it's not going to heal. If a dog comes to me and they've had allergy issues for 3 years, then it's going to take us several months to see significant improvement. And it won't take 3 years to see improvement, but it will take about 3 years to heal. Where when I say 3 years to heal, it might be where instead of having to give your dog Apoquel every single month, you can start tapering it off with your vet's approval every other month, every third month. And then you get to the point where, my dog no longer needs all these medications. They're just now getting all of their nutrition, and their gut has healed from food. Now, I think that I do want to explain that with food, if I can impart a lesson to all people who feed different kinds of diet, is to look at adding variety. Where I find that people get in trouble and they call me after 3, 4, 7 years where their dog's been raw fed. It's because they haven't added variety. They've taken the same recipe and they've essentially fed that same food for every single meal, breakfast and lunch. And
I'm super guilty of that. Yes.
Yeah. And so, but you can adjust that just by sharing the vegetables that you eat, going back to the paw print sizes. Mm-hmm. So you can add depth and variety that way. Because if you look at when you're eating a piece of spinach, that's going to have different phytonutrients than a piece of broccoli. And what you're doing at that point is, I'm feeding the gut bacteria. Mm-hmm. So look at it that way. And then also avoid ingredients that are problematic with every single meal. So there are some food brands out there that had apple cider vinegar to every single recipe, which might be great for a short period of time, but every single recipe for 3 years is going to be problematic.
Yeah.
Another one that I find problematic for dogs, and I'm not saying all dogs, but most dogs that have allergies or yeast are also sensitive to mussels. And I'm seeing more food brands adding blue mussels or green mussels to meet the requirement for manganese. So removing that and apple cider vinegar, green tripe, those are my 3 culprits.
That you want to remove from the diet.
That I want to remove from every single meal. Oh, and
you just want it minimally in their diet. So just like occasionally.
Purpose, yeah.
Okay.
And fermented dairy. So anything that's fermented is great, but it's not great for all dogs all the time. So if you have a yeasty dog, remove anything that has high histamines, which includes fermented dairy, which is intuitive because people always say, I thought kefir was good and raw goat's milk was good. I'm like, yes, but it's also very dampening food.
I want to touch on the difference between allergies and yeast. So what exactly is yeast and how does yeast present itself?
So I am going to go back to my childhood in Papua New Guinea. We did not have a washer dryer. Mm-hmm. We did have a washer. We didn't have a dryer. We had a spin cycle. So you hung everything out in the line. So you hang a wet towel out in the line and it's wet and it dries. But then the next morning, let's say a tropical storm comes in, and that towel gets wet again. But by the afternoon, because it's hot and it's an island, it dries up. But then the next morning you forget to pick it up off the line and there's morning fog, and so there's this dampness. So damp and yeast is essentially excess moisture that is creating, and bacteria, which is opportunistic, start to form a party, and they're going to form a party in the ears, in the paws. If you think about a towel where the water is going to drip to the edges, mm-hmm. So the problems show up in the extremities. So the edges of the towel, the edges of the puppy, the edges of the dog, you'll see that moisture. First level of it is typically in the ears or the paws, and you might see them licking it. Second level is as the bacteria grows, it then starts to give off a smell.
Right, that yeasty, that Frito-y, musty smell. Yeah.
Third level is there's so much bacteria, they're having a party, they've now formed into wax.
Ooh,
and so you've got waxy paws, you've got waxy ears, and then they go, oh, we've colonized this, now we're going to move to the armpits and the belly, mm-hmm. and the tear ducts. And so there's all this excess moisture. In Chinese nutrition, when you see moisture and smell, it's typically what we call damp. Mm-hmm. So there's a dampness in the body. And dry itch, on the other hand, is you see them with pink bellies. They might still lick, but they will not emit an odor. And they won't have any wax. And their coat will feel dry. Mm-hmm. So
okay.
The same kind of imbalance on different ends of the spectrum. Right. To address yeast, you feed food that's going to be astringent and bitter. So essentially, we're going to dry up that dampness, kind of like taking that towel and wringing the water out.
Right.
So food like adding dandelion greens, adding turnips. Whenever you add vegetables, think of yin and yang, below ground, above ground, hard, soft, slow growing, fast growing. If you add only the fast growing above ground, all of a sudden your dog's going to have very, very soft poo. And you're like, what happened? Did the dandelions give
Right.
my dog? Yeah, well, let's look at dandelions.
Right.
They are wet, they're fast growing because they can grow anywhere, right? On sidewalks and anything, they're going to grow. So dandelions get into your dog's body, and it's like a slippery slide and roller coaster. Woo, we're in, and then we're out.
Right.
And dog owners get confused, but then I go, that's exactly what the dandelion was supposed to do. It's supposed to move things along. So if we want to slow it down, we got to add in a tuber or a root vegetable to slow things down.
Right.
When you give food to your dog that's going to drain and dry them out, food responsive dogs, you will see a change in under 4 weeks. Concurrent to that, though, you still do need to address the topical growth, surface growth of this bacteria.
Right.
So you and I could eat the healthiest diet, but if we have dandruff, we still have to use the dandruff shampoo. And so it's the same thing with our dogs. When they have a bad yeast infection and you see it manifests in wax and odor and dampness, then an antibacterial, antifungal. There's a lot of combinations you can easily find on Amazon or ask your vet. They carry them too, typically for the same price as what you'll find on Amazon. And so concurrent to repairing the gut, feeding food that's going to drain and dry them out, and addressing it topically, yeasty dogs are very easily resolved that way. And I say easily because dry, itchy dogs are actually harder.
He's got, what's interesting is that my dog has like a combo of like dry, itchy, and yeasty.
You can have both.
Yeah. Okay.
You can have both. And so in Chinese nutrition, you want to kind of like, it's like addressing every layer. And, you know, if I cool the dog too much, I might bring dampness. And if I drain the dog too much and make them dry, you might bring heat. So it's a fine balance of readjusting what you're feeding them. Just like when you eat a watermelon, you instantly feel cooler.
Yeah.
It's thinking about the food to add to our dog's diet to help them either feel cooler or get drier.
Right.
So watermelon snacks, peaches, high moisture, cucumber, any of those snacks will help control the temperature that he's feeling.
Right. How do you address environmental allergies and food allergies differently with your...
Yeah, so an environmentally allergic dog is most often also a dog that runs hot. And it's not that they run hot, they have a deficiency called yin deficiency, so they're not cold enough in the middle. So you need to feed them cooling food like cold water fish, cod, snapper, duck, because ducks swim in the water, duck eggs.
Oh,
so
interesting.
So instead of feeding them chicken eggs, add a duck egg. And, you know, I try to pass on the information of intuitively looking at an animal that you're feeding your dog, your pet, and going, okay, chickens are kind of busybodies. They wake up and they're cluck, 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 and they're getting into everyone's business. And did you know a chicken's heart beats 200 beats per minute? Like, they're crazy fast birds. And they're a warming protein. When you feed duck, which is a cooling protein, then that energy of that duck is going to get passed on to your animal. So duck and duck eggs, rabbit, cold water fish. And even if you don't change what you're feeding, so let's say you're feeding Raised Right or Nom Nom Now or My Ollie, you can just take out 20% and put in some cod during the hot months. You can do a hard-boiled duck egg and put it in the refrigerator and serve it in quarters because they're bigger eggs, so you don't need to feed the whole egg. And then the high moisture treats that you can share throughout the day. I'm just thinking about how much we love to eat cooling treats when it's hot and it's summer.
Yeah. And then, what are some examples of high moisture treats?
So, cucumber slices, if your dog will eat them. I like to do watermelons.
Okay.
Peaches, apples, kind of stuff that you would juice. Even if you have mangoes, see if your dog will eat a mango. And again, we're talking small little pieces.
Yeah.
We're not saying fill the dog's bowl with mangoes or watermelons. It's just that instant little cool boost.
Right. Little additions to their food.
Yeah.
You also you also recommend working with a holistic veterinarian to add, herbs and supplements. But I know there are some specific supplements that you use to address yeast and allergies in dogs. Do you want to expand on those a little bit?
I do, but I don't, because I don't want people going out and buying them.
Okay.
And everything that I do is typically personalized to the dog.
Right.
So if someone thinks that their dog has yeast, but they actually run hot, if they add the wrong herb, then you're not helping the dog.
Yeah.
So it's not going to hurt them. It's just a tincture of this and a drop of that. But like I use cat's claw as an example, and I don't recommend that to all dogs, and that's to help kill any yeast that's growing in the gut. Oh, a good one that I can talk about is MCT oil. So MCT oil.
Is that coconut oil?
It's a different kind of coconut oil, but it's got something in it, and it kills the candida in both humans and in dogs. So a quarter teaspoon for a small dog, up to a half a teaspoon for a 20-pound dog. And then for the larger dogs, maybe a tablespoon, but working up slowly to it because it's oil. And adding that will help to kill the bacteria that's growing, the bad bacteria that we don't want growing. So the bad bacteria in the gut likes to eat fiber. And if we're not feeding it fiber, it's going to eat the good bacteria and it grows. And then it eats the stomach lining and then it grows. So we want to kill the bad bacteria and the candida from the stomach.
Got it. So if people want to, if people are dealing with their allergies, with their dogs with allergies, and how do they get I know you offer one-on-one consultations, and you have a booming online presence. How do people get in touch with you?
So through my Instagram, the link in the bio brings them to my website. And from there, they can book a Zoom call. And it could be as simple as one call. It could be as simple as one recipe, or some who have bigger, problems might do a longer term 4-call package. I try to meet people where they're at. And I do have a lot of free information that's on the website. I've got a yeast cleanse protocol on dailydogfoodrecipes.com. It's just not personalized to the dog. So it's a very general, see if this works for your dog, but there's some nuances that might be different. And they're very minor, but
yeah.
Yeah,
you want to personalize it as much as you can.
Yeah.
All right, Hannah, thank you. I think this is great. I appreciate you joining me again. And I'm so excited for you and your new little puppy.
Thank you so much. And I will keep an ear out for when it goes live.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Have a good week.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Baru Podcast. I encourage you to pop on over to Hannah's Instagram @dailydogfoodrecipes for more nutrition tips and some really fun and awesome videos. You can also follow the Baru on Instagram @BaruPet. Tune in next week when I have a really important conversation with Jen Shriak, founder of Family Paws. We chat about the importance of creating safer, lasting relationships between our children and our dogs. So let's chat next week.